She sat down at the wrong table. 3 snipers had already lifted their rifles to kill her. Celeste Davenport was 22 minutes late. The Manhattan traffic had ruined her plans, and the red dress she'd changed into inside the taxi was supposed to make up for it. She was a black curatorial assistant at a Chelsea art gallery, 29, exhausted from 3 years of blind dates that went nowhere, and tonight she'd promised herself she would stay calm. She would let him talk. She would let him see her. What she didn't know was that the restaurant on the Upper East Side had been booked entirely by a different man. A man with a black Korean dragon climbing the right side of his neck, disappearing under the collar of a tailored 3-piece suit. Kang Tae-jun, 44, the DJing of one of the most feared Korean syndicates in the world. They called him the Quiet One. The whole room was a trap. A rival boss was on his way, 2 snipers in the mezzanine, a henchman by the wall, 12 empty tables, 1 occupied, and Celeste walked straight to that table in red heels, dropped her bag, and apologized for the traffic. The men upstairs aimed for her chest. Tae-jun lifted 3 fingers under the table. Hold. Then he looked up, and for the first time in 16 years, he smiled. But what he did next? Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. The word decorative hung in the conference room like a slap that nobody had the courage to call a slap. Celeste Davenport kept her hands flat on the glass table and counted to 3 before she allowed herself to breathe. The client across from her, a hedge fund partner in a $5,000 sweater, was still smiling. He had said it twice now. Decorative. Too decorative. He wanted something with more gravitas for the wall behind his desk, something that announced he had taste. And the work of Amara Nwasu, a Nigerian-American painter Celeste had spent 8 months courting, was apparently the wrong kind of beautiful. She watched his mouth move. She translated in real time. "I hear you," Celeste said. Her voice was warm, level, professional. The voice she had built for rooms like this. "What I'm hearing is that you're looking for a piece that reads as serious investment first, conversation second. Amara's work does both, but I understand the visual weight you're describing." He nodded, pleased with himself. He thought she was agreeing. She was not agreeing. She was choosing in that moment to keep her job, to keep the relationship with the gallery's biggest donor intact, to translate his insult into a sentence she could say at brunch without choking. Decorative, the word he used for a black woman's painting of 3 sisters at a kitchen window. Decorative, as if light on dark skin could not also carry grief. "I'll pull together a curated selection by Thursday," she said. 3 artists, range of price points, range of aesthetic, will find your wall. He stood. He extended a hand. She took it because that is what curators do. Outside the conference room, she walked the long marble hallway of the Chelsea Boutique Gallery without rushing, without slowing, the way her mother had taught her to walk through a department store in the 90s when the security guards followed. Her heels clicked. She did not let them clatter. Composure was its own armor, and she had been wearing it since she was 11 years old. Inside the staff bathroom, she locked the door, leaned both palms against the cold porcelain sink, and stared at her own face in the mirror until the urge to cry passed. Her phone buzzed. Aaliyah. Of course it was Aaliyah. "Celeste Mariah Davenport, if you ghost on this man tonight, I will personally drive to Chelsea, drag you out of that gallery, and put you in the taxi myself. He's a software engineer. He's 30. He owns a plant. His name is Marcus. Tell me you're going." Celeste closed her eyes. 3 years of apps. 3 years of men who answered every question with a question about themselves. 3 years of dinners where she had watched the date check his reflection in the back of a spoon. Aaliyah, her best friend since freshman year at Howard, had been threatening this blind date for 6 weeks. Marcus, Rosewood Grill, 8 o'clock, Park Avenue. "I'm going," Celeste typed back. "Stop yelling at me through the screen." "Good, wear the red dress. The one I made you buy in November. You owe me for the last 3 setups." "Where? The red dress." Celeste did not answer. She did not need to. The red dress was already in the garment bag hanging on the back of her office door because she had known, somewhere underneath the morning's professional composure, that she was going to keep this appointment. Not because she believed in Marcus, not because she believed in apps, but because somewhere inside her, there was still a 13-year-old girl who had imagined being listened to by a man for an entire dinner, and that girl was getting harder to remember. She finished work at 6:45. The traffic on 10th Avenue was already a hostile sentence. She flagged a yellow cab and gave the driver the cross street. Then she did something she had never done in her life. She changed inside the taxi. The driver, an older Sikh gentleman, lifted the rearview mirror toward the ceiling without being asked and kept it there. She mouthed a thank you he could not see. She slipped the work dress off her shoulders, eased the red one over her head, zipped the side with one practiced hand, swapped the flats for black satin heels she had brought in a tote, and put on the small gold earrings her grandmother had left her. She unrolled the curly bob she had pinned back all day. The black coils sprang loose around her jaw, defined and full, the way she liked them when she wanted to feel like herself and not like someone's hire. In the cracked compact mirror, she pressed the red lipstick on twice. She blotted. She looked. "You only need him to listen to you," she whispered. "That is all, you only need him to listen." The taxi rolled east through traffic that did not care about her timeline. 42nd, 50th. A delivery truck blocked the avenue at 57th, and the driver muttered something in Punjabi she chose to translate as patience. The clock on the dashboard kept moving. 8:04, 8:12, 8:19. She arrived at Park Avenue 22 minutes late. She tipped the driver an amount she could not afford. She stepped onto the sidewalk in a red dress that the streetlight loved. The doorman of the address she had been given did not ask her name. He simply opened the brass-trimmed glass door and tilted his head with a deference that, in any other moment, would have struck her as strange. The restaurant was called Sokdu. She had read the name on her phone in the cab and assumed Marcus had picked somewhere new. She had a vague impression of Korean cuisine, dark wood, expensive lighting. She walked in already apologizing, and then she stopped. The room was empty. 12 tables, set with linen and crystal, candles already lit, gleamed back at her like a photograph of a restaurant rather than a restaurant. A vase of white orchids at the host's stand. Soft cello music she could not place. No hostess. No busboys. No murmur of other diners. Only the hush of a space that had decided, for some reason, to belong to no one. Except one table. Center of the room. A single man. He was facing the door, but not looking at it. He was looking down at something on the linen, perhaps a watch, perhaps nothing. His suit was black, 3 pieces, the sort of cut that did not advertise itself, but told the truth to anyone who had ever priced wool. A white shirt, no tie, the top 2 buttons open. The line of his shoulders read like a sentence in a language she did not speak fluently but recognized. Strength held still on purpose. Celeste's brain made the only calculation a tired, late, professionally composed woman could make in a half-empty Park Avenue dining room. That has to be him. He looked nothing like the soft-jawed software engineer she had pictured. He looked, in fact, like a different category of person entirely. But Marcus had said in his last message that he had a window booked and that he would be waiting. The doorman had ushered her in. There was only one occupied table. She was 22 minutes late, and she had already used up her capacity for confusion for the day. She crossed the room. Her heels found the rhythm of the cello, 12 steps. She passed the empty tables and noticed, abstractly, the way the candles had been lit recently, the way the napkins were folded into a shape she did not recognize. She passed a column of black lacquered wood. She passed her own reflection in a smoked mirror and registered, without vanity, that the red dress was doing exactly what Aaliyah had promised it would do. She did not see the 2 men on the mezzanine. Choi Bo-ram, slim and muscular in graphite wool, white shirt open at the collar, gloves the color of asphalt, was lying flat against the railing of the left balcony with a compact pistol balanced on a folded jacket, the suppressor pointed down at the dining room. Yoon Do-jin, broader in the shoulders, navy suit and black shirt, mirrored him on the right balcony with the same posture and the same weapon. Both had been holding that position for 37 minutes. She did not see Park Sang-hoon either, the capo standing in the shadow of the kitchen doorway, earpiece in his right ear, hand resting at the small of his back where the holster lived under the jacket. Sang-hoon's eyes tracked her from the second she walked through the door. His training told him a woman in red, alone, unscheduled, walking toward the principal, was either a courier, an asset, or a problem. His hand moved 1 inch toward his hip. And the man at the table, who was Kang Tae-jun, Dijeng of one of the most powerful Korean criminal organizations in the world, who had reserved every table at Sokdu for the evening so that a rival named Hwang Bayam-seok could walk in and find no witnesses and no exits, who had not smiled once since the year his wife had been buried, who had been waiting since 7 o'clock for an ambush that he intended to end with a single sentence and a nod, raised his right hand under the table. 3 fingers. Open. The signal his men knew. Hold. Do not fire. The thing that just walked in is not what we are waiting for. Bo-ram on the left balcony eased his finger off the trigger guard. Do-jin on the right balcony exhaled slowly through his nose. Sang-hoon's hand drifted away from the holster and rested instead against the door frame, where it looked, to anyone who did not know better, like a man bored at his post. Celeste reached the table. She dropped her small black purse on the empty place setting across from him with the soft thud of a woman who had been carrying something heavy for 10 blocks. She slid into the velvet chair. She put both hands on the linen. She exhaled the entire elevator of a workday. Manhattan traffic, she said. I am so sorry. I'm Celeste. She did not look up immediately. She was busy arranging the napkin. She was busy resetting her face from late and ashamed to present and warm. When she finally lifted her eyes, ready to deliver the practiced smile and the practiced laugh about 10th Avenue, the man across from her was already looking at her. 16 years of stillness lived in his face. He had eyes the color of a banked fire. The line of his jaw could have been drawn by someone who had a private theory about what bones should do. His hair was dark, swept back, falling to a length that should have looked careless and instead looked architectural. There was something on the right side of his neck that the candlelight caught, a thin black line that rose from beneath his collar and resolved, just below his ear, into the head of a dragon. Korean, old, drawn by a hand that respected what dragons were for. His mouth moved. It moved in a way that had not moved in a very long time, and somewhere on the mezzanine Bo-ram, who had been with Tae-jun for 11 years, lowered his head behind the rail because he did not believe what he was seeing and he did not want his face to betray it. Kang Tae-jun smiled. It was a small smile. It barely touched the corner of his mouth. It did not reach all the way to his eyes, but it was a real smile, the first one in 16 years, and it was directed at a woman in a red dress who had just apologized for traffic at the wrong table on the wrong night at the wrong restaurant, and who had no idea that she had walked into a room that had been built, that evening, to end a man's life. He did not correct her. He did not say, "You are at the wrong table." He did not say, "You are at the wrong restaurant." He did not say, "I am not Marcus." He did not say, "There are 2 rifles trained on the back of your head, and the only reason you are still alive is that I lifted 3 fingers. He said instead, in a voice that was lower and softer than she had braced for, "Please, sit. The traffic is not your fault." His English was perfect. It carried an accent that lived underneath the consonants rather than on top of them. He spoke the way a man speaks who has chosen every word he has used for 30 years. Celeste laughed, a small embarrassed laugh, and pushed a curl behind her ear. "You're being very generous," she said. "I would have given up on me by now." "I would not have," he said. She blinked. The candle flickered between them. A piece of cello music she did not know reached a phrase that resolved upward. Somewhere in the kitchen, a metal lid touched a counter and someone, very softly, swore in Korean. "That's a kind thing to say to a stranger," Celeste said. Tae-jun's eyes, for the first time, moved. They went briefly to her hands on the linen, then to the small gold earring at her right ear, then back to her face. Each look was a full sentence. Each was over before she could read it. "You are not a stranger," he said. "You are a woman who has had a long day. I can see it in the way you set your purse down." She felt the back of her neck warm. She had spent 3 years, 51 first dates, and an unknowable number of glasses of mediocre wine waiting for a man to look at where she put her purse and draw a conclusion that began with her and not with him. The cumulative weight of that weight left her, for a half second, without a sentence. "I'm Celeste," she said again because she could not think of anything else. Davenport, I work at a gallery downtown. I should have led with that. He inclined his head, the smallest acknowledgement, the kind of nod that, in another part of his life, had ended business meetings and started funerals. T-Jun, he said. He did not give her a last name. She did not notice. She was too busy adjusting to a strange new fact, which was that her shoulders had dropped 2 inches and she had not asked them to. Behind her, on the mezzanine, Boram was already speaking into his earpiece in low, fast Korean. The target had not yet entered the building. The rival, Hwang Bayam-seok, was still 6 minutes out, stuck behind a sanitation truck on Madison. Boram was asking the question every man at the DJing's command was now asking in some form. Hyungnim, the woman, what do we do with the woman? In the dining room, T-Jun, without breaking eye contact with Celeste, lifted 2 fingers off the linen toward the kitchen door. Sang-hoon read the gesture, dipped his chin once, and disappeared into the shadow to make the phone call that would buy the DJing the next 30 minutes of his own life. Celeste smiled across the table at a man she believed was named Marcus. So, T-Jun, she said, settling into the velvet, tell me something honest. Have you ever actually liked one of these things, or are we both just here because somebody wouldn't stop texting us? His mouth did the small, impossible thing again. Tonight, he said, I think I am going to like it. Outside on Park Avenue, a black town car pulled up to the curb half a block away, and a man in a chalk-striped suit with a scar at the corner of his mouth stepped out, adjusted his cuffs, and walked toward a restaurant he had been told, by a source he trusted, would be unguarded at 8:30. Inside the restaurant, the woman in the red dress reached for her water glass and laughed at something the most dangerous man in the room had just said. And for the first time in 16 years, Kang T-Jun, DJing, the quiet one, was not, in any direction his life ran, alone. The candle between them did not flicker. Neither of them looked away. T-Jun lowered his right hand from beneath the table with the same slowness he used to lower a glass. 3 fingers, then 2, then a closed fist resting against the linen. On the mezzanine, Boram exhaled through his nose and let the muzzle of the suppressed pistol drift back behind the lacquered railing. Do-jin tilted his earpiece, listened for the click that did not come, and stepped 1 pace into shadow. Sang-hoon kept his palm on the grip inside his jacket for 3 more seconds, then released it the way a man releases a bird he has decided not to crush. Celeste did not see any of it. She saw a man in a perfectly cut black suit looking at her as though she had walked out of a painting he had been waiting his whole life to recognize. I really am sorry about the time, she said again, settling the small black bag beside her plate. I almost canceled in the cab. I'm glad I didn't. T-Jun did not answer with words yet. He inclined his head a fraction, the long, slicked-back hair catching the candlelight, and motioned to the sommelier who had appeared at his shoulder without being summoned. He spoke 2 syllables in Korean, low and even. The sommelier bowed and vanished. You ordered for us, Celeste said, half a question, half a tease. On a first date, that's bold. Only the wine, T-Jun answered. His English was careful, each consonant placed like a stone. If you trust me with that much, I will return the favor with everything that comes after. She laughed, surprised by the formality, charmed by it in spite of herself. Deal. The sommelier returned with a bottle she did not recognize at first. He turned the label toward T-Jun, who barely glanced at it. When the glass came to her, she lifted it, smelled, drank, and went very still. Oh, she said. Oh, that's Romani Conti, 2008, T-Jun said quietly, as if it were the name of a quiet street. She set the glass down with more care than she had set anything down all year. I curate art for a living. I know what bottles cost in this room. You did not have to do that for a woman who showed up late in a wrinkled dress. The dress is not wrinkled. It is. I changed in a taxi. A small line moved at the corner of his mouth, not quite a second smile, closer to the memory of one. Across the empty dining room, the front doors opened. Hwang Bayam-seok stepped into the foyer with his sabertudo folded over one arm, 3 of his men spaced behind him in the practiced triangle of a man who never walked anywhere unprotected. The maitre d' moved to intercept him, polite, low-voiced, gesturing toward the only occupied table. Hwang looked. Hwang saw a woman in red, a glass of wine. Kang Tae-jun leaning slightly forward across white linen, his hands folded, his attention undivided. Sang-hoon materialized at Tae-jun's elbow with a folded slip of paper. He did not speak. He did not have to. Tae-jun lifted his eyes from Celeste for 1/2 second, registered the figure in the doorway, and moved his jaw a 1/4 inch to the left. Sang-hoon read the dismissal as cleanly as if it had been written in ink, took the slip back, and crossed the room to deliver a sentence Celeste could not hear into the maitre d's ear. The maitre d' bowed to Hwang Bayam-seok and gestured, regretfully, toward the door. Hwang did not move. He stared across the empty tables at Tae-jun, and for the first time in 11 years, he understood that he was alive at the exact pleasure of another man's distraction. He understood that the woman in the red dress did not know what she was. He understood that if he took one more step into the room, he would not leave it. He inclined his head. A bow so small it would have been invisible to anyone not trained to read it. Then he turned, gathered his men with a flick of his fingers, and walked back out into the November cold. Celeste, oblivious, was telling Tae-jun about a colored pencil drawing. And the client, this hedge fund guy, he stands in front of a Michaeline Thomas, an actual Michaeline Thomas, and he says very seriously, it feels a little decorative. Do you have anything more, serious? And I'm standing there thinking, sir, the woman has work in the Studio Museum, in MoMA, in the Brooklyn Museum, and you want to know if she's serious enough for your foyer. So I smile and I say, I understand. Let me curate a tighter selection for your aesthetic vocabulary. And then I go to the bathroom and I cry for 4 minutes. She stopped. She had not meant to say the last part. Tae-jun had not moved during the entire monologue. He had not picked up his glass. He had not looked at his watch. He had not glanced at the door through which a rival who had ordered his death 6 months ago had just been escorted out. He was looking at her the way men in Renaissance paintings looked at saints, and she felt the heat of it on the bridge of her nose. 4 minutes, he said softly. What? You said 4 minutes. Most people would say a moment. You counted? I always count, she said. It's how I know when it's safe to come out. He nodded once, slowly, as if she had told him something enormous. The drawing in the foyer, he said. Was it serious enough? It was a Michaeline Thomas, she repeated. I know who she is. I asked if it was serious enough for the wall. Celeste set down her glass. You know who she is. I have one of her smaller works. Tae-jun said, it is not in a foyer. She stared at him. He did not blink. The candle between them held very still as if it too were listening. You actually listen, she said. Do you know how rare that is? He took a breath that seemed to come from somewhere older than his lungs. I had forgotten how. The sommelier returned with a second course she had not ordered, plates appearing in the silent choreography of a kitchen that had been told to keep coming until told to stop. Galbai J. Jim, fragrant and dark. Pickled radish cut in translucent moons. A small bowl of broth so clear she could see the bottom of the porcelain. She did not ask why the menu had not been offered. Something in the way Tae-jun watched the food arrive told her the menu had never existed for him. You said 3 years of apps, he said, returning gently. Tell me about the 3 years. She laughed, a little broken. You really want to know? I really want to know. So she told him. She told him about the man who texted only after 11. She told him about the one who took her to a Michelin restaurant and spent the entire meal on his phone. She told him about the architect who said he loved black women and then asked her over dessert if she had ever considered straightening her hair for professional contexts. She told him about the photographer who said she was too much, the lawyer who said she was not enough, the painter who said she was perfect right up until the morning she mentioned she wanted children. Tae-jun listened. He did not interrupt. He did not perform sympathy. He did not, at any point, tilt his head into the practiced angle of the man who is waiting for his turn to speak. He listened the way the empty room listened, fully, with all of itself. When she finished, she realized her wine was gone and she did not remember drinking it. And tonight, he said. Why did you say yes to tonight? My friend Aaliyah, Celeste said. She's a lawyer. She's relentless. She said if I canceled one more time, she would block my number until I agreed. Aaliyah, he repeated, and the way he said it told her, though she did not yet know how to read it, that he had already filed the name. What about you? She asked. Why are you sitting in this restaurant alone on a Thursday in November? A pause. The first one of the evening that had wait. I came here to meet someone, he said, and they didn't show. They showed, he said, and then they left. That's awful. It is not awful, he said. I am not sorry. She did not know what to do with that, so she reached for the wine that was no longer there. The sommelier refilled her glass before she had finished lifting her hand. What do you do? She asked. I just realized I have not even asked. Jun's expression did not change, but somewhere behind the calm, a switch she could not see was thrown with great precision. I am in import and export, he said. Family business, logistics, distribution, the kind of work that does not photograph well. Boring on purpose, she said, smiling. Boring on purpose, he agreed. And tonight you wear a three-piece suit for boring logistics. Tonight, I wear a three-piece suit because a woman in a red dress was, somewhere in Manhattan, on her way to the wrong restaurant. I did not want to be underdressed when she arrived. Celeste's hand stopped halfway to her glass. She looked at him properly for the first time, the way a curator looks at a canvas she has been told is by a master and is only now beginning to believe. The long, slicked-back hair. The dark, intelligent eyes that did not flicker. The hint of ink at the side of his neck that she had decided, in the first 30 seconds, must be a shadow. It was not a shadow. She did not yet have a word for what it was. But she registered, somewhere beneath conscious thought, that the room was empty for a reason, and that the reason was not bad luck for the restaurant. She filed it. She did not let it surface. She wanted, very badly, for the evening not to end. I have to use the restroom, she heard herself say. Of course. He stood as she stood, not halfway up, fully up, the way men in old films stood. She had never had a man do that for her in her life. She walked across the empty dining room in her red heels, conscious now of every echo. The hostess directed her toward a discreet hallway. The bathroom was a small, impeccable room of black marble and warm gold light. She locked the door and stood with her hands flat on the counter and breathed. Then she opened her bag and turned on her phone. The screen filled, line after line, the way water fills a sinking room. 8:14 p.m. Marcus. Hey, I'm at the bar at Rosewood, you close. 8:31 p.m. Marcus. Traffic this bad? No worries, take your time. 8:47 p.m. Marcus. Still here, just ordered a drink, take your time. 9:09 p.m. Marcus. I want to make sure I'm in the right place. You said Rosewood Grill on 56th, right? 9:24 p.m. Marcus. Hey, I think there might have been a miscommunication. I'll wait another 20 minutes. 9:41 p.m. Marcus. Going to head out. I have an early flight to Denver tomorrow. I hope you're okay. Take care of yourself, Celeste. 9:42 p.m. Marcus. Genuinely, take care. Celeste read the messages once. Then she read them again. Then a third time, because the first two had not made any sense in a universe in which she had been sitting across from a man for the past hour and a half. Rosewood Grill, 56th. She lifted her head and looked at the small framed menu on the bathroom wall. Sokdo, Upper East Side. Korean tasting room, 42 seats. She was not at Rosewood Grill. She had never been at Rosewood Grill. The man in the three-piece suit at the only occupied table was not Marcus Caldwell, 30, gray suit, blue tie, brown shoes, kind face from accounting in Midtown. The man in the three-piece suit was a stranger who had watched her cross an empty dining room in red heels and lie down her bag and say her own name and not, at any point in the last 90 minutes, told her she was at the wrong restaurant. He had not corrected her. He had ordered a $4,000 bottle of wine. He had listened to her cry, in summary, about every man who had failed her for 3 years. He had stood when she stood. She pressed her forehead against the cold black marble and closed her eyes. She did not know who he was. She knew, with the clean certainty of a curator who has finally seen the signature, that he was someone. She thought about going out the back. She looked for a back. There was a service door at the end of the corridor. She could be in a cab in 90 seconds. She could block the number she did not have, ghost a man whose last name she did not know, file the entire evening under the heading of things she would never tell Aaliyah because Aaliyah would die laughing and then die screaming. She thought about it for a long time. She thought about it for the length of one slow breath against the marble. Then she straightened. She washed her hands. She reapplied the red lipstick. She looked at herself in the mirror for 3 seconds longer than she needed to. She unlocked the door. She walked back across the empty dining room in her red heels, and this time she heard every single echo. Tae-jun stood when she returned. He waited until she had taken her seat. Then he sat. The wine had been refreshed. A small dish of fresh fruit had appeared, persimmon and Korean pear cut into careful shapes. The candle had been replaced. The kitchen was still going. She did not pick up her glass. "I am at the wrong restaurant," she said. He did not pretend to be surprised. "Yes," he said. "I was supposed to meet a man named Marcus Caldwell at the Rosewood Grill on 56th Street at 8 o'clock. He waited for me until 9:41. He has an early flight to Denver. He works in finance. He is 30 years old. I have never met him in person. I matched with him on an app on a Tuesday." Marcus Caldwell, Tae-jun repeated, as if confirming the spelling. "Denver tomorrow, United, I believe, the 7 a.m. She put her hand flat on the table because she did not trust it not to shake. "You knew," she said. "I knew within the first sentence." "Within the first? You said, 'I am Celeste.' I had not been expecting a Celeste. I had been expecting no one. I had reserved the entire restaurant at 7 o'clock this evening for reasons that have nothing to do with you. When you walked in, my men almost made a mistake I would not have forgiven them for. I made them stand down. I let you sit. I let you speak." "You let me," she said. "I asked you to," he corrected, gently. "With every silence between your sentences, I asked you to keep speaking. You did. Why?" He did not answer immediately. He looked at the candle. He looked at her hands. He looked, finally, at her face. "Because I have not heard a woman speak the way you speak in 16 years, he said. "Because you walked into a room that had been emptied for a war and you brought weather with you. Because I have built a life in which no one comes to the table by accident, and tonight, someone did. And she was you. I do not even know your full name." "Kang Tae-jun. Kang Tae-jun," she said, the syllables strange and clean in her mouth. "And the restaurant is mine tonight," he said, "from 7 until I tell them otherwise. All of it, all of it." She let her eyes travel slowly across the 12 empty tables, the dim sconces, the mezzanine where she now noticed for the first time 2 figures in dark suits standing very still in the shadows. The man near the door in the black tie, the kitchen still moving for a single table. "Are they here for you?" she said, "or for me?" "They are here for me," he said. "They have been here for me for 16 years. Tonight, for the first time, some of them are also here for you. They simply do not know it yet." She did not know what to say to that. She did not know what one was supposed to say to that. So she did what she had done all evening, which was the only thing she had ever known how to do when a man finally chose to look at her. She met the look back. The candle, replaced, burned tall and even. Neither of them looked away. Celeste did not remember walking out of Sokdu. She remembered the door, the sudden cold of Madison Avenue against her bare arms, the doorman raising one gloved hand and a black town car sliding to the curb before she had finished her first breath. The driver said her address before she did. She got in because her knees were faster than her pride. The leather smelled new. The radio was off. Through the tinted window, Manhattan slid by in long ribbons of gold and red. She pressed her forehead against the glass and tried to slow her pulse the way her mother had taught her at 9 years old, breathing in for 4, holding for 4, releasing for 6. It did not work. Her hands would not stop shaking. She unlocked her phone. The screen brightness was already low, as if the device itself were embarrassed for her. She opened the browser. Her thumbs hesitated over the search bar for what felt like a full minute before she typed the name. Kang Tae-jun. The first results were nothing. Korean actor with the same surname, a youth basketball coach in Busan, a bakery in Queens. She scrolled. Her shoulders began to ease. Then on the 4th page of results, an English-language article from a financial trade journal in Singapore loaded. And underneath that a Korean tabloid piece dated 4 years earlier. And underneath that a grainy paparazzi photograph from a Macau casino lobby. She enlarged the photo. The man in the frame stood half-turned away from the lens, his face mostly in shadow, but the slicked-back hair was unmistakable, and the side of his neck above the collar of a black coat was unmistakable, and the thin black ink rising along the right side of that neck in the shape of a stylized dragon was unmistakable. The caption underneath read in 3 languages. The English version said only what she needed to read. Korean organized crime. Suspected senior figure. No comment from authorities. She scrolled further with her thumb gone numb. A second article. A third. The words began to repeat themselves and lose meaning. Dijang, syndicate, Manhattan, Macau, Seoul, untouchable. The phone slipped out of her fingers and landed face down on the leather seat. The driver said nothing. He did not look in the mirror. She picked the phone back up because she had to. She blocked the number that had called her once that evening to confirm the car was on its way. She blocked it with the deliberate precision of a woman dismantling a bomb. Then she sat very still and watched the city pass her without recognizing any of it. The car stopped in front of her building. The driver got out, opened her door, did not offer his hand. She stepped onto the sidewalk in heels that suddenly felt borrowed. Her doorman, the one who looked at her chest every morning and pretended he was looking at the mail, was not at his post. The lobby was empty. She rode the elevator alone, walked the hallway alone, unlocked her door with a key that took 3 tries to turn. Inside, she did not turn on the lights. She walked to the bathroom in the dark, sat down on the cold tile floor with her red dress bunched around her hips and her shoes still on, and she cried. Not loud, not the way people cried in movies. She cried the way a building cracks before it falls, quiet and structural, and from the bottom up. She was not crying because she was afraid of him. That came later, in pieces, and never as the loudest sound in the room. She was crying because for 90 minutes inside that restaurant she had felt seen, truly seen, heard the way a thirsty plant feels rain. She had let her shoulders come down. She had laughed twice. She had used the word lonely in a sentence about herself for the first time in 3 years, and the man across the table had not flinched. And the man across the table was a killer. She was crying because she had been wrong. Not wrong about him, exactly. Wrong about herself. She had spent her entire adult life believing she could read a room, read a buyer, read a man across a wine glass, and the system she trusted most, her own instinct, had marched her into the wrong restaurant, sat her at the wrong table, and told her this is the one, and she had believed it. She did not know which betrayal was worse, the one outside her or the one inside her. She slept on the bathroom floor. She woke at 6:15 to a knock at her door that was not a knock but a delivery buzz from the lobby. She crawled to the intercom in last night's makeup. The new doorman, a stranger she had never seen, told her there was a package and would she like it brought up. She said leave it at the desk. She splashed cold water on her face, brushed her teeth without looking in the mirror, pulled on sweats, and went down. The package was a long white box tied with gray ribbon, no logo, no card on the outside. She brought it upstairs the way a bomb technician brings home a parcel. She set it on the kitchen counter. She made coffee. She drank half a cup before she would let herself untie the ribbon. Inside, on a bed of white tissue, lay 24 white peonies. Her favorite flower. The one she had never told anyone, not Aaliyah, not her mother, not the 3 years of dating apps. The flower she bought herself once a year on her birthday from a tiny shop in the West Village and never posted on social media and never mentioned in conversation because it felt private the way a name a child gives to a stuffed animal feels private. 24 of them. Stems long. Petals tight, just beginning to open. The faint, sweet smell rising into her kitchen. A small ivory card was tucked between 2 blooms. She lifted it with the tips of 2 fingers. Tonight is yours, tomorrow too. The signature was 2 letters, TJ. She stared at the card for a long time. Then she walked the box to the trash chute in the hallway, slid it inside, and pushed the lever down. The chute closed with a sound that should have been satisfying and was not. She came back inside, sat on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinets, and tried to breathe. Her phone rang. Work. The gallery. She let it go to voicemail because she could not yet trust her own voice. 2 minutes later, the assistant texted, "Hey, are you coming in? Don't rush. Something weird happened." She typed back, "What happened?" The reply came in 3 bubbles, the second one landing before she had finished reading the first. Ruben is gone, like fired this morning. Security walked him out at 7. Board called an emergency meeting last night, nobody knows why. Ruben, the director, the man who put his hand on the small of her back at every opening for 2 years and called it mentorship. The man who took credit for the show she had built from a studio visit in Bed-Stuy. The man HR had spoken to twice with no result because his uncle sat on the board. Gone. Celeste stared at the screen. She knew. She knew the way a person knows weather is coming. She did not have proof and she did not need it. The timing was not a coincidence. Nothing was a coincidence anymore. She texted back. I'll be in by 10. She showered. The water was too hot. She let it be too hot. She washed off the perfume from last night and the salt from her own crying and the faint trace of someone else's cologne that had transferred to her shoulder from a single moment when he had reached across the table to refill her glass and his cuff had brushed her skin. She dressed in black. She walked to the train. She refused the cab she would normally have hailed. At the corner of her block, a slim Korean man in a charcoal overcoat she had never seen before was standing near a coffee cart. He did not look at her. He did not need to. Half a block later, when she glanced over her shoulder, he was still there, the same exact distance behind. When she crossed the avenue and walked another block, he was gone, replaced by a different man, also Korean, also in dark wool, who appeared to be reading the Wall Street Journal at a bus stop. By the time she descended into the subway, a third had taken his place at the top of the stairs, and she understood without anyone telling her that there was a perimeter around her now, and that the perimeter had a name. She rode the train with her hands flat on her thighs. At the bodega across from the gallery, the owner who had known her for 4 years and had never once gotten her order right slid a paper cup across the counter without taking her money. Already paid for, he said. Friend doesn't want to be named. Says you take it the way you like. She lifted the lid. Oat milk latte, 2 shots, half a pump of vanilla, no foam. Exactly. The cup was warm in a way that meant it had been made within the last 3 minutes. She set it on the counter. She walked out without it. She got to the gallery door before she turned around, walked back, picked the cup up, paid for it anyway in cash the owner refused to take, and carried it inside because she was thirsty and because pride that day was a luxury she could not entirely afford. At lunch, the building manager called her cell. She almost did not answer. She did. Miss Davenport, he said, we are sending out a notice this afternoon about a small change in ownership of the building. Nothing changes for tenants. Rent stays where it is, lease terms honored. However, we have made a personnel change at the front desk effective immediately. The doorman on the morning shift has been let go. We apologize for any prior discomfort. She did not ask which doorman. She did not ask why now. She thanked him and ended the call and sat at her desk and stared at her hands. By 2 o'clock, she could not stop the feeling that someone had lifted the lid off her life and was rearranging the furniture inside while she watched, gently, without breaking anything, but without permission. She Googled herself at 3. The Reddit threads about her, the one started by a stalker who had attended one of her panels 2 years ago and would not let go, the ones she had given up trying to get taken down, were gone. All of them. Deleted. The doxed addresses, the photoshopped images, the slow drip of harassment she had learned to live with the way New Yorkers learn to live with rats. Erased. The accounts that posted them suspended. The mirror sites scrubbed. She closed the laptop with the careful movement of a woman afraid she would throw it. At 4, she walked to the bathroom at the back of the gallery, locked the door, sat on the closed lid of the toilet, and called Aaliyah. Aaliyah picked up on the second ring because Aaliyah always picked up on the second ring. He is everywhere, Celeste said, before hello. He is everywhere and I cannot say I hate it. There was a pause on the other end. Slow down, Aaliyah said. Who is everywhere? Celeste told her, not all of it. She left out the dragon. She left out the photo from Macau. She left out the word she had read on her phone in the back of the car last night. She told her about the peonies and the latte and the doorman and the building and the Reddit threads, and Ruben walked out at 7. Aaliyah was quiet for a long moment. You blocked his number, she said finally. Last night, Celeste said, and he has not called. He has not called. He has not texted. He has not shown up at your door. He has not had anyone speak to you in person. No, he just, Aaliyah said slowly, removed every problem you have ever complained to me about in one morning without asking and signed none of it. Yes. Aaliyah exhaled the long, careful exhale of a woman who litigated for a living. Baby, she said, that is not romance. That is a campaign, I know. That is not a man with a crush. That is a man with infrastructure. I know, so why are you whispering? Celeste pressed her free hand over her eyes. The tile of the bathroom wall was cold against her shoulder, because she said the worst part is not that he did it. The worst part is that nobody has ever done anything for me without keeping a list of what I owed them after. And he did not, there is no list. He has not asked me for one thing. Not a thank you, not a date, not a phone call. He just heard everything I never said out loud and made it stop. Celeste, Aaliyah said, listen to me. Celeste did not answer. Listen to me, you do not have to want this, you do not have to like this. But I need you to tell me, right now, on this call, do you feel unsafe? Celeste sat with that question. She gave it the time it deserved. She thought about the men in dark wool at the corners. She thought about the way the driver last night had said her address before she did. She thought about a stranger sitting across a table from her in a restaurant with 2 snipers on a mezzanine she had not noticed, and how the only thing he had done with that power was lift his hand under the table to make sure nobody pointed a gun at her. No, she said, that is the problem. I feel safer than I have felt in my entire adult life, and the man making me feel that way is somebody I am supposed to be afraid of. She heard Aaliyah breathe in. Okay, Aaliyah said. Okay, we are going to handle this, but you do not see him, not until we talk in person, not until you sleep, not until you have eaten something that is not coffee. You do not see him, Celeste. Not yet, promise me. I promise. Say it like you mean it. I promise, Aaliyah. They hung up. Celeste stayed on the closed lid of the toilet a long time after the call ended. The fluorescent light hummed above her head. Somebody knocked once on the bathroom door, heard nothing, and went away. She thought about her mother. She thought about the way Loretta had raised her alone after Celeste's father left, and the rule Loretta had given her at 12 years old, the only rule that had survived every other rule her mother had tried to teach her. A man will show you who he is in 3 ways, her mother had said. The way he treats people who cannot do anything for him, the way he behaves when he thinks nobody is watching, and the way he listens when you talk about something small. Celeste closed her eyes. He had refilled her glass before she noticed it was empty. He had asked her the name of the artist in Bed-Stuy and remembered it 20 minutes later when she circled back to a different story. He had stood when she returned from the bathroom. He had not interrupted her once in 90 minutes. He had, she now understood, called off a war while she was talking about the colors in a painting. She opened her eyes. She did not know, yet, what she was going to do. She did not know how to hold what she had learned about him in one hand and what she had felt about him in the other and walk forward without dropping both. She did not know how to be a woman who had been seen by a man whose existence she had not been supposed to know about. But she knew one thing, and the knowing of it scared her more than the man himself. She had not thrown away the card. She had told herself she had. She had walked the box of peonies to the chute and pushed the lever and watched it close. But before she had carried the box out of the kitchen, her fingers, without permission from the rest of her, had slipped that small ivory card out from between the blooms and tucked it into the inside pocket of the coat hanging on the back of the kitchen chair. It was still there now, folded once, warm against the lining. Tonight is yours, tomorrow too. She stood up from the toilet lid. She washed her hands at the sink because her hands needed something to do. She looked at herself in the mirror for the first time since the night before. The woman in the glass looked tired. The woman in the glass looked older. The woman in the glass also looked, in some quiet way she could not entirely name, less alone than she had looked in 3 years. That, more than anything else, was the part that frightened her. Because she did not yet know whether the loneliness leaving her was the truth arriving, or only a beautifully built lie taking its place. And she did not know how a woman like her, who had built her whole life on being able to tell the difference, was supposed to live inside a question she could not answer. She turned off the bathroom light and went back out to the gallery floor where the work was waiting and the day was not done. She did not look at her phone for the rest of the afternoon. The card in the coat pocket did not move. The men on the corners did not move. The city outside the window kept moving, the way it always did, indifferent and beautiful, around the small private earthquake of one woman trying to stay upright in shoes that no longer felt entirely her own. Celeste set her napkin on the table the way she set everything down when she needed an excuse to move, folded once, edge aligned with the rim of her plate, a small ritual of composure. She rose, smoothed the red dress along her thighs, and felt the man across the table watch her stand. He did not look hungry. He looked attentive. There is a difference, and at 29 she had finally learned to feel it on her skin. She walked toward the back of the dining room in her refined black heels, the click of them suddenly too loud in the quiet. 12 empty tables. Polished glasses she had not noticed before. A waiter near the kitchen door who did not move, did not even pretend to be busy, only stood with his hands folded in front of him like a soldier at ease. She filed it under strange and kept walking. The bathroom corridor was lined with dark wood. A small vase of white peonies sat on a console table. She paused, surprised by them, then kept going. The door swung shut behind her with a soft, expensive sigh. She set her small black leather bag on the marble counter. She rested both palms on the cool stone and exhaled. For 90 minutes she had not looked at her phone. For 90 minutes she had been a woman who was being listened to, and the feeling had been so unfamiliar that she had decided, without deciding, to protect it. Now, alone, she breathed in once and reached for the bag. The screen lit up under her thumb. The number at the top of the notifications stack climbed past 40 and kept going. She frowned. Aaliyah, 6 messages. Her mother, 2. The galley's group chat, a flurry. And threaded down the middle of the list like a quiet seam, a name she had almost forgotten she was supposed to be meeting. Marcus Caldwell. She tapped. 7:58. Hey, I just got to Rosewood Grill, table on the patio, gray suit, blue tie. 8:12. Should I order water for you, or are you closer to wine? 8:29. Hey, traffic that bad? Let me know you're okay. 8:41. I'm going to give it another 15 and then I'll grab something at the bar. 9:06. Hey Celeste, I think I got the night wrong, or you did, or something happened. I hope you're safe. I'm heading to the airport early, flight to Denver in the morning. Take care of yourself. She read it once. She read it twice. The marble under her palms went from cool to cold. Rosewood Grill, not Sockdew. She pressed the heel of her hand against her forehead and stared at the message until the letters lost their shape. The Korean characters carved into the mirror frame above the sink suddenly registered. The name of the restaurant on the matchbook in the small dish by the soap dispenser. Sockdew, not Rosewood, not even close. She had walked into the wrong restaurant. She had walked into the wrong restaurant in a red dress 22 minutes late, dropped her bag at the only occupied table in a room full of empty ones, and introduced herself to a complete stranger who had not corrected her. Who had ordered the most expensive wine on the list, who had leaned in to listen to her talk about a gallery owner she would never have told a stranger about, who had not, in 90 minutes, said one true thing about himself. Her throat went tight. The shame came up fast and hot, the way shame always does when it has been waiting politely behind a door. She looked at herself in the mirror, the textured curly bob framing her face, the red lipstick still neat, the gold earrings catching the light. A beautiful woman who had spent an hour and a half being charming to a man whose name she did not know. She laughed once, a short, humiliated sound, and pressed her fingers under her eyes to keep the mascara where it belonged. Run, she thought. Just run, out the back. Pay the bill at the front desk and call a car from the corner. He doesn't know your last name. He doesn't know the gallery. He doesn't know anything. You vanish, you tell Aaliyah about it on Sunday over wine, you turn it into a story, you survive. She picked up her bag. She straightened the dress. She turned for the door. Then she stopped. She did not owe him anything. But she owed herself the walk back to the table. She had marched in like she belonged. She would march out the same way. She squared her shoulders, breathed in through her nose, and pushed the door open. The dining room felt longer on the way back. He was still there. Of course he was still there. He had not moved. The wine had been refilled. The candle had burned down a 1/4 inch. He sat with his back perfectly straight, hands resting on the white linen, the silver watch catching a small private flash of light. The dragon tattoo at the side of his neck pressed dark against his collar where he had turned his head a fraction to track her return. She reached the table. She did not sit. I owe you an apology, she said. Her voice was steadier than she had any right to expect, and I think a bill for that wine. He looked up at her with the same calm attention he had been giving her all night. He did not smile, he did not smirk, he did not perform anything. Please, he said, sit. I'm at the wrong restaurant, she said. She kept her chin level. I was meant to meet a man named Marcus Caldwell at the Rosewood Grill. He waited an hour. He left. He has a flight to Denver in the morning. I'm so sorry, I just realized. A small, slow breath moved through his shoulders. I know, he said. She stared at him. You know? Yes, you know about Marcus. Marcus Caldwell, 30, he said. The English was unhurried, almost gentle, the consonants precise. Senior data analyst at a logistics firm in Midtown, lives in Murray Hill. He sat at the Rosewood for 53 minutes. He ordered a sparkling water and then a glass of Pinot. He left a 20 under his glass. He boards United at 6:40 tomorrow morning out of Newark. Her hand tightened on the back of the chair. How? It is my business to know things. How long have you known? He looked at her with that same direct steadiness. Since you said your full name in the taxi outside, before you came in. She felt the floor tilt very slightly under her heels. She set the bag on the chair to keep her hands occupied. The dining room was still empty. 12 empty tables. The waiter by the kitchen door who had not moved. The 2 men on the mezzanine she had not let herself look at all evening. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were already sitting, he said. And because the moment you sat I had a decision to make, and I made it. What decision? He paused. He did not break eye contact. He did not perform a pause, he simply paused. I had reserved this entire restaurant for the evening, he said. Every table, every chair. The kitchen, the staff, the front door. The owner is a man who owes me an old debt and prefers to pay it quietly. I was meeting someone else here at 8:30, not a friend, not a guest, someone who has, for several months, made the mistake of believing that distance equals safety. He did not raise his voice. He did not lower it. At 8:22, a woman in a red dress walked through my front door, crossed my dining room as if she had every right to it, dropped her bag at my table, said her name was Celeste, and apologized for traffic. My men on the upper level had 3 seconds to decide whether you were an asset, a threat, or a coincidence. I lifted my hand. I told them you were a coincidence. Then I looked up at you and I made the second decision. Which was to let the coincidence sit down. The silence that followed was not empty. It was crowded with everything he had not said and everything he had let her say. You let me, she breathed. You let me sit here for an hour and a half and tell you about my gallery, about my boss, about Marcus and the apps and my mother. I listened. You listened because you had to, because you were waiting for someone. I listened, he said quietly, because I had forgotten what it sounded like when someone speaks without measuring every word for who might be listening, and because, after the first 3 minutes, the person I was waiting for stopped being interesting to me. What happened to him? A small flicker in the corner of his mouth, not a smile, a confession. He arrived, he said. At 9. He stood in the doorway, he saw the dining room, he saw you, he saw me looking at you. He understood that the room had changed, and he left of his own accord. I let him. Why? Because killing a man at a table where a woman in a red dress is laughing is not a thing a man like me does. The word killing did not raise itself in his mouth. He set it down between them the way someone sets down a glass of water. Carefully, without spilling, her breath caught at the back of her throat. She felt very precisely the moment her own heartbeat changed rhythm. Who are you? She said. He held her eyes. My name is Kang Tae-jun. I am 44 years old. I was born in Busan. I came to this country at 22 with a duffel bag and a debt I did not yet understand. The men upstairs work for me. The man at the door works for me. The owner of this restaurant works, in a sense, for me. I run a portion of an organization that does not advertise itself, and tonight I made a decision that, in 16 years, I have not made for any woman, which was to lift my hand under the table when the safer thing would have been to leave it down. She did not sit. She did not move. The red dress that had felt brave at 8 o'clock now felt like a flag pinned to her ribs. You're him, she said. The man the headlines never quite name. Some of the headlines, yes. And I. You walked into the wrong restaurant, he said. And you sat at the wrong table. I am aware of the geometry. She closed her eyes for a moment. The marble of the bathroom counter was still under her palms, somewhere in her body. The shame she had felt walking back to this table reorganized itself into something larger and colder and harder to name. I have to go, she said. Yes. Don't follow me. I will not follow you. Don't have anyone follow me either. He inclined his head. There will be a car at the curb when you step outside. The driver works for the restaurant. He will take you to your address in Harlem, and he will not speak unless you speak first. You may refuse him and take a cab. He will not stop you. He will only make sure that the cab you take is not a problem. Stop, she said. He will not speak. Stop knowing things about me. He did not answer that. He could not, and he had the grace not to lie. She picked up her bag. Her hand was steady. She did not know how her hand was steady. Mr. Kang, Taejun. Mr. Kang. The wine was $4,000 a bottle, and I have spent the last 90 minutes telling a stranger every soft thing in my life. I would like to leave now, please, with what dignity I can carry, and I would like you to do me the kindness of not making this harder. I will not make it harder. She turned. She walked. The heels clicked across the dark floor exactly the way they had clicked on the way in, the same length of stride, the same posture, because there was nothing else she could give herself at that moment except the refusal to shrink. The waiter at the door bowed slightly. The brass handle was cold. The cold December air outside hit her bare arms and her throat at once, and she gasped, quietly, the way a person gasps when they have been holding their breath without realizing. A black SUV idled at the curb. The driver stepped out and held the rear door open without a word. She did not get in. She walked half a block, found a yellow cab on Lexington, lifted her hand, and slid into the back. She gave her address. She did not look behind her. The black SUV did not follow. 2 blocks later, in the side mirror, she saw a second black SUV ease into traffic 3 cars back, keep that exact distance, and stay there. She did not know if it was his. She knew it was his. She pressed her forehead against the cold window and let the city blur. The driver glanced at her once in the mirror, registered the red dress and the wet line under her eye she had not noticed was there, and decided, mercifully, not to ask. He turned the radio down to a whisper. Some small, old kindness in a man she would never see again. She felt grateful for it in a way that surprised her. She opened her phone. Her thumb hovered. She did not call Aaliyah. She did not call her mother. She did not call Marcus to apologize, because there was no apology in any language she knew that would explain where she had spent the last 2 hours. She closed the phone and pressed it face down against her thigh. Then, because the body always knows before the mind catches up, she began to shake. Small, fine tremors at the shoulders, the kind that come not from fear but from the late, quiet arrival of adrenaline at the wrong station. She held her elbows. She breathed in for 4, out for 6, the way the yoga teacher at the studio off Lenox had once taught her in a class she had only attended twice. She thought of his hand under the table. 3 fingers. A signal she had not seen and had not been meant to see. She thought of 2 men on a mezzanine who had decided, on his word, not to put a bullet through her temple in a red dress at 8:15 on a Tuesday night. She thought of him saying, "I had forgotten how." She pressed her forehead against the cold window and let the city blur again. Park Avenue, then Lexington, then the long stretch up through the 70s where the buildings begin to lean closer over the street. Her phone was warm in her hand. She did not open it. She thought, very clearly, I told him about my mother. She thought, very clearly, I told him I was lonely. She thought, with a precision that frightened her, he is the first man in 3 years who has looked at me as if I were a sentence he wanted to finish reading. The cab climbed past 96th. The black SUV climbed with it, 3 cars back, patient as weather. Inside the restaurant behind her, Kang Taejun sat alone at a table set for 2, with a bottle of wine that cost more than most men earn in a month, and watched the candle finish burning. He did not check his phone. He did not signal the waiter. He sat with his palms flat on the white linen, the way a man sits when he is teaching himself, slowly and without mercy, the shape of a thing he is not allowed to want and has decided anyway that he is going to keep. Sang-hoon stepped from the shadow near the kitchen, leaned to his ear, and murmured the address of the cab. Taejun did not look up. 3 cars back, he said quietly. No closer. To her door, then home. She does not see them. She does not feel them. She does not know. Dijeng. She will know, he said, but not tonight. Tonight she gets to be angry. Tonight she gets to be ashamed. Tonight she gets to decide who she is in the morning. We do not take that from her. Sang-hoon bowed and stepped back into the shadow. Taejun lifted the wine glass. He drank once, slowly, and set it down. The candle guttered. The dining room held its breath. Somewhere across the cold, dark grid of Manhattan, a woman in a red dress was riding north in a yellow cab, learning, mile by mile, that the wrong table is sometimes the only table the world ever bothered to set for you, and that the shame burning under her ribs and the warmth she had felt across the linen all night were, impossibly, the same fire. The cab smelled of pine air freshener and old leather and a stranger's cologne, and Celeste sat in the back with her phone in both hands the way a child holds a small, dangerous animal. The driver said something in a language she did not catch. She nodded without hearing. The meter ticked. Park Avenue slid past her window in long ribbons of yellow light, and she could not remember telling him her address. Her thumbs were already moving. Kang, K-A-N-G. She typed it slowly, one letter at a time, the way you spell out a word you do not want to be right about. T-Jun. She paused. She typed it. The search bar held its breath. She tapped. The first 3 results were ordinary. A pediatrician in Seoul, a finance executive in Singapore, a college professor at Yonsei. She scrolled past them with a flicker of something that almost passed for relief, and then her thumb stopped on its own. The 4th result was a paparazzi photograph from a Macau casino, grainy and crooked, taken through a column. A man in a black 3-piece suit crossed a marble lobby. His face was half-turned. His hair was slicked back. The collar of his white shirt sat open exactly 2 buttons low, and above the collar, climbing the right side of his neck, was the unmistakable head of a Korean dragon in fine black ink. She did not breathe. The caption was in Mandarin. Below it, in a smaller font, English. Korean organized crime, suspected DJing, alleged ties to multiple international cells, photograph subject's identity unconfirmed. The journalist's name. A date from 4 years ago. Her phone slipped half an inch in her hands. She caught it against her thigh. She scrolled. Another article, this one from a Korean newspaper she could not read, the dragon photograph cropped and printed beside a long column of Hangul. A 3rd article in English, a single paragraph buried in an old crime blog, the name Kang Tae-jun followed by the words quiet one in quotation marks, the way you mark a word that does not belong to ordinary language. The driver took a left she had not asked for. She did not correct him. She closed the browser. She opened it. She closed it. She opened her contacts and stared at the number she had given him at the end of the meal. When he had asked the way other men ask, with his hand flat on the table between them and his eyes on her mouth. Her thumb hovered over block this caller. She tapped it. A small pop-up asked if she was sure. She tapped yes. The screen went back to her home wallpaper, a photograph of her mother at 60 on the porch of the house in New Rochelle, holding a watering can, squinting against the sun. Celeste looked at her mother's face for a long time. Then she put her forehead against the cold glass of the window and let the city pull her north. She did not cry in the cab. She paid in cash. She climbed the 4 flights to her apartment because the elevator had been broken for a month and the super had not answered her last 3 emails. She did not turn on the lights. She set the small black bag on the floor inside the door. She walked into the bathroom in her red dress and her refined black heels and her discreet gold earrings, and she sat down on the cold tile with her back against the side of the tub, and only then did her body finally let her. It was not the kind of crying you do for a man. It was the kind of crying you do for yourself. For the version of yourself you had believed in for one whole evening, the woman who had been listened to, the woman who had been seen, the woman whose worth had finally been recognized by a stranger across a table set with crystal. That woman had been a lie, and the lie had not even been his. The lie had been hers. She had wanted so badly to be heard that she had walked into the wrong restaurant, sat at the wrong table, taken the wrong man's silence as proof of her own value, and not noticed the gun in the room. She slid down the tile until her cheek rested against the cold porcelain edge of the tub. The discreet pearl earrings pressed into the side of her neck. She thought about Marcus Caldwell, who had ordered water and waited politely and texted her with kindness even when she stood him up, and who was probably already asleep in a hotel near LaGuardia, and who would have been an ordinary good evening with an ordinary good man, and whose name she had not thought of once during the meal. She thought about the waiter who had not moved. She thought about the empty tables. She thought about the way Jun had raised his hand under the linen when she walked toward him, 3 fingers open, a gesture so small she had not seen it, and she understood now what that gesture had been for. Someone above her in the mezzanine. Someone with a sightline. Someone who had been waiting for a word from him to decide whether she lived. The bathroom light, which she had not turned on, glowed faintly through the frosted window from the street lamp outside. Her own reflection in the dark mirror across the room was a shape she did not entirely recognize, the red dress dark as wet brick, the textured curly bob softened around her face, her shoulders narrower than they had felt all night. She whispered it to the tile. I sat at his table. I let him pour the wine. I told him about the gallery. I told him about my mother. Each sentence was a small stone she set down on the floor between her knees, and each stone made the pile heavier, and the pile was not him. The pile was her own astonishing willingness, after 3 years of careful dating, to drop her whole self into the lap of the first man who tilted his head when she spoke. She fell asleep on the bathroom floor in the red dress. She woke at 6 to the buzzer. The intercom crackled. The delivery man's voice was bright and bored. Flowers for a Davenport. She buzzed him up without thinking. She opened the door in yesterday's eye makeup and yesterday's dress and yesterday's heels held in one hand by their thin straps. The delivery man's eyes flicked across her once with a New Yorker's practiced disinterest. He held out a white box the size of a small dog, tied with a single cream ribbon. She signed. She closed the door. She set the box on the kitchen counter. She untied the ribbon. White peonies. A dozen, then another dozen behind them, then another, the box deeper than it had looked, the petals the pale, faintly green-veined white of peonies cut at exactly the right hour of the morning. Her grandmother had grown peonies on a porch in Charleston when Celeste was 7. Her grandmother had called them the only flower honest enough to admit it would not last. Celeste had not said the word peony out loud in 20 years. A small cream card sat tucked between the stems. She turned it over with 2 fingers. Tonight is yours, tomorrow too. TJ, she read it once. She put the card back in the box. She picked up the entire box, peonies and ribbon and card and all, and she carried it to the kitchen trash and she let it fall in. The trash bag sighed under the weight. She washed her face. She drank water from the tap. She put on jeans and the cream oversized blouse Aaliyah had given her for her birthday and her white sneakers, and she walked to the gallery on foot through morning Chelsea because she could not bear the closeness of a train. Her boss was not at the gallery. The receptionist was crying, but not unhappily. He had been let go, the receptionist said, looking up from her tissue with confused, almost guilty eyes. Effective this morning. The board had made the decision overnight. There were, she said carefully, allegations. Celeste stood very still in the middle of the white floor. She had filed those allegations 8 months ago, quietly. In writing, through HR, they had sat in a folder somewhere and done nothing for 8 months. They had done something overnight. She walked to the small cafe on 10th where she went every morning. She did not order. The barista, a girl with a nose ring who had never said more than 3 words to her, slid a cup across the counter before Celeste reached the register. Oat milk latte, double shot, no sugar, exactly the way she took it. A friend paid for it, the barista said. Didn't want to leave a name. Celeste did not pick up the cup. She walked out. By noon, the porter at her building was gone, the porter who had stood too close in the elevator for a year. The porter whose hand had grazed her hip 3 times in 3 months, each time as he reached past her to press the button she was already pressing. The new doorman wore a fresh uniform and did not look at her body when she walked in. The super, suddenly responsive, told her in the lobby that the building had changed hands 2 days ago and the new ownership was, in his words, very thorough. By 3. The anonymous account that had posted her home address on a forum 8 months ago, the one the police had told her they could not trace, the one she had filed and refiled and then stopped filing, was gone. The forum itself had been taken offline. She found out because she had typed her own name into the search bar the way you press a bruise. The bruise did not hurt anymore. That was worse. She stood in the middle of her kitchen and looked at her own hands. They were not shaking. She had bitten her thumbnail down to the quick last week worrying about the rent that had just gone up $200, and the cuticle had still not healed, and she touched the small ridge of dried skin and thought, with a strange, detached calm, that the rent would not go up again. Whoever owned the building now owned her. She set a kettle on the stove because she needed her hands to do something. She turned the gas on. She turned the gas off. She poured a glass of water. She did not drink it. She walked to the front window of her apartment and parted the curtain with one finger. Across the street, in the second-floor window of the building opposite, a man in a dark coat was reading a newspaper. He did not look up. He did not move. The newspaper was open to the financial section. She had never seen him before. She watched him for a full minute. He turned a page. He did not look up. She let the curtain fall. She did not know whether he was T-Jun's man or only a stranger who had always read newspapers in that window and whom she had simply never noticed in 3 years of living here, and the not knowing was its own architecture. A small dark room she had not been able to leave since the cab the night before. She walked back into the bedroom. She sat on the edge of her bed in jeans and the cream blouse, and she dialed Aaliyah without thinking. Aaliyah answered on the second ring. "He is everywhere," Celeste said. She did not say hello. Who is? Him. Aaliyah, in her own kitchen across the river, set down whatever she had been holding. Celeste heard it click against the counter. "Tell me," Aaliyah said. Celeste told her. The fired boss, the paid coffee, the fired porter, the dead forum, the peonies in the trash, the blocked number she could feel humming somewhere behind every door she opened. There was a long silence on Aaliyah's end. Then, careful, lawyerly, the voice of a woman who chose her words because she knew what they were worth. "Celeste, are you safe?" "I am safer than I have been in 3 years," Celeste said, and the sentence came out before she could stop it. And the moment it left her mouth, she pressed her free hand flat against her own face because she could not believe she had said it. "That," Aaliyah said quietly, "is the problem." Celeste closed her eyes. "He is in every room I walk into," she said. "He is in my coffee. He is in my building. He is in the lock on my door and the silence at my job and the empty space where a stalker used to be. And I cannot say I hate it." Aaliyah did not answer. "Tell me to hate it," Celeste said. "I cannot tell you what to feel," Aaliyah said. "I can tell you what he is. I read it in the cab. Then you know, I know. So tell me," Aaliyah said, and her voice softened the way it only softened for Celeste. "What scares you more? That he is what he is. Or that he is what he is, and you are still here, on the phone with me, in your apartment that he made safer, drinking water from a tap he probably owns the building of, and your hands are not shaking the way they should be." Celeste did not answer. Outside her window, the late afternoon light moved across the brick of the building opposite hers in the slow way light moves when the day is preparing to let go. A pigeon landed on the sill. A car horn complained 2 blocks away. The radiator in her bedroom clicked the way it had clicked every winter she had lived here, except now she wondered, with a small cold thrill she despised, whether he had paid for that too. "My hands," she said, "are not shaking the way they should be." "I know," Aaliyah said. "I do not know who I am anymore." "I know." The line stayed open. Neither of them spoke. After a long while, Aaliyah said gently, "Do you want me to come over?" "No. Are you sure? I need to sit with this alone." "Okay," Aaliyah said. "Okay. Call me at midnight. Call me at 3. Call me whenever. But promise me one thing." "What?" "Do not open the door tonight." Celeste promised. She hung up. She sat with the phone in her lap, and the late light on her face and the smell of white peonies still faintly in the kitchen behind her. And she understood, with a clarity that hurt more than anything that had hurt her yet, that the lowest point of a life is not the moment you lose something. It is the moment you discover that the woman you had been, the careful, principled, dignified woman who had said no to 100 small wrongs across 29 years, was not, after all, who you were under pressure. Under pressure, you were someone else. Under pressure, you were a woman who could be moved by a hand under a tablecloth and a single small smile and a glass of wine and the unfamiliar weight of being heard. And who, knowing exactly who the man on the other side of the table was, knowing it in newsprint and grain and ink, could still not, in the privacy of her own apartment, in the safety of her own locked door, in the truth of her own chest, bring herself to say the word hate. Her phone buzzed once on her thigh. A blocked number. She stared at it. It buzzed again. She did not pick up. It went quiet. She set the phone face down on the bed beside her, and she pressed both palms flat against the cream blouse over her ribs, and she felt her own heartbeat through cotton, steady and traitorous, and entirely her own. The fever broke and rebuilt itself 3 times across the next 4 days, and Celeste learned the geometry of her own ceiling at hours that did not technically exist. The thermometer kept telling her the same lie. The chills told her the truth. She drifted between the couch and the kitchen in the cream blouse she had not bothered to change, and she counted the small mercies that had landed inside her apartment without permission. A humidifier she had not bought, plugged into the outlet by the window, hissing softly. A paper bag of Korean pears on the counter. A bottle of electrolytes on the coffee table with a handwritten note in tight, disciplined script. Drink slowly. No ice. The handwriting did not sign itself. It did not need to. She did not let him back in. She told herself that, out loud, twice on Tuesday morning. She said it again on Wednesday afternoon when Aaliyah called and asked her if she was eating, and Celeste lied and said yes, and then sat at the kitchen counter and ate half a pear in slow, embarrassed bites because she could not remember the last full meal. The galbye tang from Monday night had lasted longer than it should have. She reheated it twice. She refused to think about the hands that had made it. She thought about them anyway. By Thursday, she could stand without the apartment tilting. By Friday, she could read 3 pages of a novel before her eyes blurred. By Saturday, she could shower without sitting down halfway through, and that small triumph felt larger than the promotion she had been chasing for 2 years. She dried her hair in the bathroom mirror and looked at her own face, and saw the woman who had walked into sock dew in a red dress. And she saw the woman who had sat on a bathroom floor and cried about her own certainty, and she could not yet decide which of them was looking back. Her mother arrived on Sunday morning without warning, which is to say with the warning Loretta Davenport had always considered sufficient, which was none. Celeste heard the buzzer and the familiar rhythm of 3 short presses, and she opened the door in sweatpants and the cream blouse she had finally laundered. And her mother walked in carrying a glass casserole dish and a small leather purse, and the unblinking calm of a woman who had raised 3 daughters and buried 1 husband and had no patience left for ornament. "You look thin," Loretta said. She set the casserole on the counter. She put her glasses on the tip of her nose and pushed them back up. "Sit down. I made oxtails. You're going to eat 2 helpings, and you're going to tell me everything you have been hiding from me for a month." Celeste opened her mouth to deny the hiding. She closed it. She sat down. The oxtails went onto plates, and the plates went onto the small table by the window, and Loretta poured ginger tea into 2 cups without asking. She watched her daughter eat the first 3 bites in silence. She watched the 4th. On the 5th, she set her fork down and folded her hands. "Tell me his name," she said. Celeste's fork paused. She lowered it. The steam from the tea rose between them like a curtain that protected neither of them. "Mama, tell me his name." "His name is Kang Tae-jun." Loretta repeated it once, softly, the way she repeated names at funerals to make sure she remembered them properly. She nodded. She took a sip of tea. "And what does he do?" Celeste set both hands flat on the table. She felt the wood through her palms. She felt her own pulse against the grain. She had practiced this answer in the shower. She had practiced it on the metro. She had practiced it standing at her own front door looking through the peephole at nothing. None of the practiced versions came out. "He's dangerous, Mama. He's the kind of dangerous that has its own word in another language. He runs something. He runs a lot of things. I looked him up, and I wish I hadn't, and I'm glad I did, and I don't know which one I'm supposed to be." Loretta did not flinch. Loretta had been a postal worker for 31 years in a neighborhood where the mailboxes sometimes had bullet holes, and Loretta did not flinch at words. She took another sip. "And what does he do to you?" "He listens." He sent peonies, Mama, white ones. I never told anybody those were my favorite. He sent them the morning after we met, and I threw them in the trash, and I took them out of the trash an hour later, and I put the card in my drawer, and I have looked at the card every day for 3 weeks, and I have not told one person that until right now." Loretta nodded once. She reached across the table and laid her palm over her daughter's hand. Her palm was warm and rough at the edges, the way it had always been, the way Celeste had known it since the first night she had a fever that mattered. "He came here Monday, Celeste said. I was sick. I had 102 and I couldn't get off the couch, and he showed up at 9 o'clock without a tie, Mama. Without the suit. Without the men he travels with. He brought a soup he made himself. He put a cold cloth on my forehead 3 times, and he did not touch me anywhere else. He sat on the floor and he read a book in Korean while I slept. He left before I woke up. He left a paracetamol counted out for 48 hours. He cleaned the pot. And you asked him why? I did. What did he say? Celeste swallowed. The ginger tea had gone cool in front of her. She did not pick it up. He said his wife died 16 years ago because a man who was supposed to protect him chose the wrong side. He said he had promised himself he would never again leave anyone who mattered to him alone with a fever. He said I mattered to him. He said he did not choose it. He said it happened at the wrong table. Loretta's hand stayed on hers. The cream blouse had a small stain near the second button that Celeste had not been able to scrub out. The afternoon light through the kitchen window was the soft, slanted kind that made every honest thing look unbearable. Baby, Loretta said. She did not raise her voice. She never raised her voice. If a man listens to you, you take note. If a man kneels down to take care of you when you have a fever and asks for nothing, you take note twice. I'm not telling you what to do with the rest. I'm telling you what you already know. You already know. Celeste did not answer. The tears that came were not the wrecking tears of the bathroom floor 3 weeks ago. They were quieter. They were the tears of a woman who had been holding a door closed against herself and who had just heard her own mother turn the lock the other way. Loretta did not move her hand. She let her daughter cry through the rest of the oxtails. She did not say anything else about the man until she was standing at the door with her purse on her arm and her glasses pushed up. She kissed Celeste on the forehead. Whatever he is in the rest of his life, Loretta said, you ask him the questions straight, you ask him to the face, and you watch his eyes when he answers. A man's eyes will tell you if he is going to keep you safe or if he is going to make you small. Don't accept small, not even from a man who listens. She closed the door behind her. The lock clicked. Celeste stood in the foyer in sweatpants and the cream blouse and the slanted afternoon light, and she walked slowly to the bedroom, and she opened the second drawer of her nightstand, and she took out the card she had been pretending not to keep. Tonight is yours, tomorrow too. TJ. She held it for a long time. She set it down on the bed. She picked up her phone. She unblocked the number. The thread reopened, empty on her side, full on his. 3 weeks of unanswered messages stacked in tidy gray rectangles, none of them demanding, none of them performing, each of them the same quiet weight as the man who had written them. She typed 7 words. She read them 4 times. She did not soften them. Sunday, Bryant Park. 5 p.m., no driver, no men, just you. She pressed send before she could revise it. The 3 dots appeared almost at once. They blinked. They held. The reply was 1 line, I will be there. TJ. Sunday arrived the way Sundays in late October arrive in Manhattan, with a sky the color of old pewter at the edges and warm gold at the center, and the wind that knew autumn was finishing its work. Celeste did not wear the red dress. She wore dark jeans and a black turtleneck and a long camel coat and ankle boots, and she put on the small gold earrings she always wore, and she carried no bag. She walked. From her apartment to Bryant Park, she walked the whole way, and she did not look behind her once, and she did not need to. She knew that 2 black SUVs were keeping a perfect, impossible half-block distance, and she knew that he had told them to stay there, and she knew that he was already at the park, because he had been at every place she had ever needed him to be, and that was the thing she was about to address. He was standing by the carousel, in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater and a black overcoat unbuttoned at the front, no tie, no cufflinks, no watch she could see. The dragon tattoo at the side of his neck rose above the sweater's collar and disappeared the way it always did. He saw her from 40 feet away. He did not wave. He simply stopped and waited and let her come to him at the pace she chose. She stopped 3 feet from him. The carousel turned behind him with its small painted horses and its mechanical music thinned by wind. A child laughed somewhere. A pigeon lifted from the railing. Hi, she said. Hello, Celeste. Walk with me. They walked. They left the park at the south corner and they crossed 40th and they turned west toward 6th, and the city around them did its ordinary Sunday work. She let 2 blocks pass before she spoke. She had practiced this question in the shower as well. She had practiced it on the metro. None of the practiced versions came out. The real one did. "I want you to tell me what you do," she said. "Not what you want me to hear. Not the version you've worked out for the woman in the red dress. The real one. Plain words, I will not interrupt." He did not break stride. He looked at her. He looked at the sidewalk ahead. "I control violence," he said, "so that people like you never have to see it. I run an organization that moves money and protects territory and settles debts that no court will touch. The men who work for me are loyal because I am fair and because I am exact. Sometimes I kill, Celeste. I will not lie to you about that. I have killed men who tried to kill me, and I have ordered the deaths of men who would have hurt the people under my protection. I do not enjoy it. I do not avoid it. It is the cost of the seat I sit in. I did not inherit the seat. I took it 16 years ago after my wife was buried, and I took it because the men who killed her were already coming for me, and the only way to stop them was to be worse than them in a colder language. I have been worse than them in that language ever since." He paused at a curb. The light turned. They crossed. "I will tell you what I will never do," he said. "I will never bring that work to your door. I will never let it touch your name. I will never ask you to lie for me, or carry anything for me, or stand near anything that has my other life on it. The men behind us at the half-block, they are there because the man I refused to kill at Sokdu is still alive and still angry, and he knows your face now. They will be there until he is no longer a problem. After that, only if you want them, never if you do not." She did not interrupt. She had promised herself she would not. They walked another block. The wind pulled at the hem of her coat. She kept her hands in her pockets. "Why did you not have him killed?" she said. "Because you were at my table." "That isn't a reason." It was that night. They crossed 7th. They turned south. A street musician was playing a cello on the corner of 39th, the case open on the pavement, $3 bills inside and a small red apple. T. Jun stopped. He took a folded bill out of his coat. He set it in the case without looking at the man playing. He kept walking. She did not comment. She filed it. "The fever," she said. "Yes." "The pears, the humidifier, the electrolytes?" "Yes." All of it without asking. "Because asking would have given you the burden of refusing. I did not want you to carry that. I wanted you to drink water." She did not answer. 4 blocks of silence followed. They were not empty blocks. They were full of every question she had practiced and every answer she had not, and they were full of the small fact that he was walking on the curbside of the sidewalk without making a show of it, the way her father had walked on the curbside beside her mother for 40 years before he died. And she had not realized, until that moment, how long it had been since a man had done that without being told. On the 5th block, at the corner of 34th and 6th, with the long stretch of the avenue opening before them and the late sun catching the windows of the buildings on the west side and turning them the color of warm brass, she took her right hand out of her coat pocket. She let it hang at her side for half a step. She slid it into his. His hand was warm. His fingers closed over hers slowly, the way a man closes a door he does not want to wake the house. He did not look at her. He did not speak. He adjusted his pace by a fraction so that her stride and his stride matched. They walked 4 more blocks like that. And on the 4th block, the sun finished its descent behind the Hudson, and the street lamps along 5th came on one after another in their long, golden sequence. And the city she had lived in for 9 years looked, for the first time in any of those years, like a place built around her. They turned onto 5th at 32nd. The avenue stretched north in its straight, certain line, the windows of the closed boutiques throwing their warm gold onto the pavement, the doormen at the corners nodding to no one in particular. She wore dark jeans and a camel coat. He wore a black overcoat that fell to his knees. Their hands were joined between them. Half a block behind, 2 black SUVs rolled in patient, synchronized silence, headlights off, engines almost inaudible, keeping a distance that was neither close enough to intrude nor far enough to lose. She caught the reflection of them in the glass of a closed jeweler's window as they passed. The whole tableau framed, her red lips she had not worn tonight but might wear again, her coat, his hand in hers, the 2 cars behind. She smiled. She did not say anything. He felt the smile. He always felt everything she did not say. He leaned down a fraction, his mouth near her ear, and he spoke very quietly in Korean. Dangshanai ni sesenj jara wasio. You have entered my world. She did not ask him to translate. She did not need to. She walked another half block in his hand, and she watched the gold sequence of the street lamps step away from them up the avenue toward the park, and she answered without looking at him, in the only language that had ever been entirely hers. You sat at the right table after all. If the story stayed with you even after the screen went dark, know this, it doesn't end here. Our private community is the extension of this channel. Every story ad-free. No interruptions. No breaks in the atmosphere. Bonus scenes and extra chapters the public version doesn't show. And for the inner circle, one of our 3 tiers, one brand new exclusive full-length story every month. Plus the sensual chapters reserved only for the chair you're sitting in. 3 doors in. Scan the QR code on your screen. Tap the link in the pinned comment, or follow the link in the description below. Your name belongs on the next page. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever sat down at the wrong table in your life and discovered that the mistake was actually where you were supposed to be? Have you ever met someone whose world frightened you, but whose silence finally let you breathe? And if a man with blood on his hands knelt beside your fever and asked nothing in return, would you have the courage to take his hand on a Manhattan sidewalk? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about listening, dangerous tenderness, and the right table found by accident, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.